is something about fall and the month of October when writers all over get that burst of energy and motivation and inspiration to start preparing for a new project or their very first project. So for the new writers out there, here's my 10 tips on how to finish your first draft. Hello, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome! My name is Anne, I'm a writer and an aspiring author. I don't plan to join any November writing challenges, so instead of doing Preptober for a new project of mine, I'm using the month as basically a rest month and doing a Preptober for my own writing process instead. But regardless of me not planning on joining any November writing challenges, I still want to do my part in helping other writers, especially the new ones that are just going to embark on writing their very first draft next month. So here's my disclaimer before I start giving out advices out there. Not all writing advice is good advice. Take what works for you and leave out the rest that don't. With that said, let's get on with it. So, number 1, utilize writing sprints. The idea of writing sprint originated from the Pomodoro focus technique, wherein you set up a timer for 25 minutes to focus on a specific work, a specific task, a specific project. No matter what you're trying to do, 25 minutes, focus on it, and then you take the 5 minutes after that as a break before you go on in another 25 minutes focus work on a different task. And then you continue doing that until all your tasks for the day is done. For writing sprints, well, basically you can choose whatever kind of timer you want. You can use your own phone timer, you can use an app. I personally use the Forest app, and then you can even just go into Google and look for timers in there, whether you want to use a straight up Pomodoro timer, which usually when you search that through Google, you get that 25 minutes already set up for you baked into the app or the site, whichever you find and choose when you go to Google. So yeah, you can choose any timer you want. I think ABBIE EMMONS do this in her channel. She's an author tuber, and I think she specifically makes aesthetic videos that already has a timer in it, including the break timer for each writing sprint. And I think she usually makes 2 hours for each video, if I'm not mistaken. I will link down her channel for you guys to check out later if you haven't subscribed to her channel yet. She has a bunch of writing tips, especially for new writers, in her channel. So anyways, I mentioned that I use the Forest app. It's another app wherein you can plant trees while the timer is going. And you can set up different times, different minutes for however long you want in the Forest app as well. It takes longer for me to focus on writing, so I usually do short writing sprints at the beginning, just if I need to catch up on what I wrote the day before. And then when I'm ready to write, I set my timer up for 45 to 60 minutes writing sprints, basically. I do long writing sprints, so you can also do that. You don't have to stick to the 25 writing sprint, but you can start short if that works for you, or you can start long right away if that's how you want to do it. But utilize the writing sprints where you can just focus on your words on that specific sprint without going back and editing what you just type in your manuscript or write in your manuscript if you're handwriting your draft. Whichever works for you, short sprints or long sprints, or mix and match it up. Maybe start short, then continuously set your timer higher and higher until you can figure out how until you can figure out the perfect timer for you. Let's move on to number 2. Discover multiple ways to motivate yourself. So one of the things I use to motivate myself to write is watching other tube in between my writing sprints, because watching other writers write their own books and see the progress they're making in their own projects helps motivate me, helps make me feel like I want to do that too. I want to also progress in my manuscript and get to the end as fast as I can, usually. I also use music. When I wrote the very first draft that I've ever finished, I couldn't write to music with lyrics. I had to listen to ambient noises while writing. But before I write, I usually listen to a music playlist, not necessarily a playlist for my book because I don't work that way. I listen to music, different songs, different genres based on my mood, and I'm a mix and match of everything when it comes to music preferences. I can never make a playlist just based off of or as an inspiration for my book, because the music I'll probably be listening to on the third draft of a project is gonna be totally different from the music or the playlist I'm going to be listening to while I was writing the fifth draft, or totally different from the one that I've listened to during the first draft. But anyways, music is a very motivating factor to me in a sense that it lifts up my mood. Even though I said that I choose my music based on my mood, it still puts me into that creative headspace at the beginning. So my music has to be blowing out of my speakers in the morning, not too loud obviously because we have to respect the neighbors and other people sleeping at the time. It signals in my brain that I'm getting close to my writing time, or it puts me into work mode basically. Although now I can also draft with music with lyrics playing in the background, and sometimes I can even draft and focus on my own writing while also watching an AuthorTube channel or an AuthorTube vlog, especially if there's a bunch of typing and the sound of other people's clickety-clacking keyboards are in the background as well. For you, it could also be music or watching other AuthorTube channels, or it could also be Pinterest, when you make a Pinterest board of your own characters or your plot or your magic system or your setting, and you make a mood board out of all of that, and then you make that into a wallpaper. I also have the same thing. I did that too, and now that I finished, let me show you guys. I finished my last project. So now my wallpaper is the mood board that I made last year when I first started this project that I'm thinking of starting later in the year. So let me show you real quick. So I have that. This could change. I could decide to make a new one, but for right now, that's what I have. And that signals to my brain that I'm focusing on this specific project. You can also do the same thing, or if you have Scrivener, you can design your Scrivener in a way that every time you see it, it pulls you into a writing mood, into the writing mood. Because all you needed is to be in the writing mood, and then you can start tippity-tapping on that keyboard of yours too, or handwriting, if that's what you're doing. But why do you need these things to help you feel motivated? Your story should be your motivation, your character, your world, the plot, the theme that you're trying to say about this story. All those should be the only thing that you need, right? No, wrong. Because you're gonna feel all that excitement, all that inspiration, all that motivation to work on your story at the beginning of your draft. When you start plotting, maybe when you start developing your story, yes, you're gonna feel all of that. You're gonna have that. But writing a story is hard work. It takes time and patience and persistence, and Sometimes your motivation is not enough to actually sit down and work on it. Sometimes you need help. Actually, a lot of times you need help to get to that headspace to start working on your book. Because there will come a time while you're drafting where everything feels like nonsense. Like writing your book is nonsense, like your characters are not good, the world building is not good, you don't understand one aspect, you don't think the plot should be heading this way, but you're now stuck in this way because you veered through this path in your plot that you didn't outline in the first place. Now you're stuck and it sucks. And that's when people start feeling writer's block. And writer's block can stem from multiple things. It could stem from being tired, it could stem from lack of inspiration, it could stem from lack of motivation, it could stem from you not knowing where to go next, it could stem from you just wanting to scroll through social media instead of working on your book. It's different things. You just have to figure out which of the various way you can have a writer's block is the reason, the specific reason that you're experiencing it. But going back to the lack of motivation, it happens. Even writers feel like they don't want to write, even when they know they should. And if you're aiming for a specific word count at the end of a month, if you're on a deadline, if you want to finish a draft because you booked an editor on a specific date, then you have to work on it. And sometimes the motivation and inspiration isn't there. So you have to do something so you can have that motivation to write. Like I said, music, Pinterest boards, watching other writers work, joining a live stream. There's a bunch of that in YouTube. You can join a bunch of other tubers who do live writing sprints. Motivation comes and it goes. You can't always rely on it, but when you need to write, and if you really want to finish a draft, you have to write even when you don't want to. And sometimes talking yourself into writing is just not enough. So discover the various ways you can get motivation so you can write on the hard days, because there will be hard days. It's normal. It's how writing is. And speaking of joining live streams and watching other author tubers, number 3 is to find a writing buddy or join a writing community. Writing is solitary work. No one else is gonna write your book for you. Well, unless you decide to pay a ghostwriter to write your book for you, which is a totally different thing altogether, or you decide to jump to the Gen AI bandwagon and plug your story idea into ChatGPT and make it write your book for you, which meant that you're not a writer. If you don't write your book and you ask a computer to write it for you, then you are not a writer. And everything I say in this video is not gonna be beneficial for you. I'll say this now, you're not a writer if you use generative AI to write your book. Moving on. So finding a writing buddy or a writing community or both helps us feel not as isolated while we're working. Yes, you're the only one who's gonna be dealing with your book, at least for the time being, because later you'll have editors, alpha readers, beta readers, critic partners maybe, that could be in the writing process with you, but for the time being, while you're writing the first draft, it's all on you. Unless you start looking for alpha readers already, then it's not just you. But anyway, still, just imagine having another writer hype you up when you don't have the motivation to write. Having other writers do writing sprints with you. Seeing other people progress in their work in progress, just as you do. Having actual people to talk to when you want to rant about your book or the writing process, and they actually understand what you're going through and what you're talking about. Having another writer to throw ideas at when you're feeling stuck in your own book. Imagine all those things. And you can have all those things if you have another writer friend or a writing community. Because only other writers know and truly understand what you're going through because they're also going through the same thing. And even if you're the only ones who's working on this book, seeing all the things that's going on in this book, at least you have other people who is going through the same thing with their own books. And then it doesn't feel as alone anymore. There's a lot of writing communities here in YouTube. Join live streams and hang out in the comments. Join writing Discord groups or writer Discord groups. There's a bunch of Discord groups for writers out there too. And even if you're an introvert, guess what? Most writers are introverts. And they will understand. All you have to do is introduce yourself, even just a little bit, so they can know you, know your name, and then, cultivate that relationships that you can have in the writing community. So moving on, number 4, butt and share or develop a writing habit. Now, what your writing habit looks like is gonna depend wholly on you, your responsibilities, and your schedule. It doesn't mean insert word count here every day as your writing schedule. It could mean writing 500 words in the morning before you head to work. It could mean writing 30 minutes every morning before you head to work. Or it could also mean writing every time you have 15 minutes to yourself each day. Maybe writing in the weekends instead of the weekdays. It depends on your lifestyle, on, like I said, schedule and other responsibilities. Because you could be a mom who needs to take care of toddlers in the morning and the only time you have to write is when they take naps or 30 minutes in the morning before they have to wake up. Or you could be like me, I'm a stay-at-home mom with grown kids and they go to school every day. So I have time to write in the morning and sometimes at night. But that doesn't always work. Anyways, whatever works for you, do that. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. 15 minutes every day, 30 minutes every day, 15 minutes before you head to bed, or 30 minutes, an hour before bed, an hour before work, during your commute to work. You don't have to have the perfect setup first. You don't have to have a mechanical keyboard. You don't have to have a big screen. You don't have to have a big desk. You don't have to have lights, aesthetic lights on your desk just for you to write. Those are nice and they're awesome and they maybe help you get in the mood to write, but they're not necessary. All that's necessary to write your book is you and your mode of writing. That could be pen and paper if you're handwriting, or a laptop, your PC, your keyboard, your console. I don't know how that works. I don't know why I said console. What I meant is just your computer. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're there, you have time to put down the words and you work on your book, that's all you need as a writing habit. Don't let yourself fall victim to the idea that you have to have everything just right before you can start writing, because as soon as you start doing something like that, the perfect lighting, the perfect ambience, the perfect music, the best scented candle you can find during the season, because if that happens and you lose one of those things and you don't have everything under control, you'll end up feeling like you're missing something, and then you can't get into the writing headspace that you need to be in to write your book. If the candle that you love got discontinued, if it's not on season, if the company shuts down, I don't know, if your keyboard dies, that's horrible. Yes, I feel that too. I love my keyboard. I also felt that, but yes. So you don't have to have the entire setup, all the shebangs to get into the writing habit. Just get into the habit first. Prioritize writing, prioritize sitting down to work on your book, and then the other things, they're just cherry on top. They're just extra good stuff that makes you happy. That's it. But prioritize your writing habit, writing the book on a specific time, when you have the time based on your lifestyle. So, okay, moving on. Number 5, Have a goal every time you write. This could be a word count goal, or a scene goal, a chapter goal, or a time goal, as long as you make sure it's sustainable. By that I meant, make sure you can repeatedly do it so it becomes part of your writing habit to reach for every time you write, basically. That's the point of the goal. Having a goal for each writing session, it gives you something to shoot for every time you write. Try for the least challenging goal. So even on the days when you have low energy, no motivation, just wasn't in the mood, or your life got busy, extra projects at work, kids needs help in school, kids got sick, but you also have to, or you want to, write that day. If you have a smaller goal to shoot for, that could be 100 words for that entire day. Could be doable, could be still too much, could be just sitting down for 30 minutes and figuring out what happens next. Doing something small to shoot for, even though it's not, 5,000 words a day, 10 hours write-a-thon, things like that. Even though it's not that high, you still know that you progress in your story, in drafting your book at the end of the day. Also, having a small goal on your writing days helps when, like I said earlier, you have lack of motivation, because maybe you just said, I'll just write for 5 minutes. All I have to do is sit at your desk, write for 5 minutes, and then whatever happens from there happens. Maybe at the end of that 5 minutes, you feel like, I really don't want to write. Then at least you spent that 5 minutes doing something on your project that day. That's good enough. Start again tomorrow. Or maybe at the end of that 5 minutes, you realize, you know what? I'm gonna keep going. I extended another 5 minutes, so you have 10 minutes next. You work through it until, it's time to get done with writing for the day. And voila! You started small and then you got to where you're at the end of the day. That's progress. Whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long, word count goal, maybe 100 words, maybe 50 words, 20 words, one paragraph, it doesn't matter. Just start small and it will compound over time. So speaking of goals, number 6 is to keep track of your progress. Whether that be your total word count for each writing day, the total time spent working on the book each time you do for every day, or whichever, total scenes or chapters written, could be anything. Just keep track of it. Maybe have a separate notebook, spreadsheet, or Google Docs that you make a table out of, like that have the dates and your project name, or how many sprints you did that day and the total word count. Keep track of it. So when the day comes where you spent your writing day not putting words down in the manuscript because you have to brainstorm or plan or develop the magic system or your setting, those words aren't going to be on your manuscript, but they're still words that you put down somewhere else for the story. You may not be tracking total word count for that day, but you're tracking time spent working on the book. And if you have to spend multiple days or weeks developing other parts of the book outside of actually putting words down on paper, if you don't track those hours or minutes or weeks spent on brainstorming instead of writing, you will not see your progress, and that might, make you sad after a few weeks, and then imposter syndrome can creep in. It will start telling you that you're not making progress, you're not doing enough, you're not good at writing, you're not a good writer because you're not spending all this time putting words on paper, when in fact, you've been doing just that. It may not be on the manuscript, but you're putting writing work in for your book. And if you don't track those progress outside of a word count or actual writing, you may not see it right away and you'll just wallow in the imposter syndrome. Yeah. Imposter syndrome sucks. And every writer has it. Even published authors has it. So mitigate that chance for it to creep on you. Track your progress. Also seeing that progress can lift up your mood when you're, feeling down because you're not, like I said, seeing the words on the page and your manuscript word count isn't going up because, like I said, you're working outside of it for the time being. But if you track your progress, you switch from word count tracking to time tracking, you'll see that progress is being made and you'll be happy. And you know that you're doing what you can to work on your first draft. So number 7, have at least a solid idea of one element of your story before you start drafting. This is mostly for pantsers, because if you're an outliner, you have an idea about your plot, you have an idea about your characters, your theme, and all that hula-baloo. So this is mostly for pantsers or plantsers, those who don't know all the little bit of details about your story yet. Because sometimes plotting just isn't gonna work for you, or sometimes you're just an impatient person and you just want to start drafting once you got the story idea instead of, developing an outline first. Anyway, so whether this element is the theme, your characters, main characters, or your plot, as long as at least one of those 3 you have a solid grasp on before you start drafting, the drafting process will be easier because then you won't be totally blind. So, like for characters, if you have a solid idea of your characters but you're lost on plot and theme while you're drafting, you can at least do what if questions and you can be sure how your characters will react and act depending on the situations you put them into, and then you can get more ideas on how to progress in the story knowing your characters from that alone. Or if you have a strong idea about your plot but not sure about your character and theme, you know that you need to get your characters from point A to point Z but you're not sure how they're going to react. So you're gonna discover a lot if it's something like that. You're gonna write them and put them in a situation and you expect them to do one thing but they end up doing something else, then you meander. If you have an idea of your major plot points, even though you meander through your plot going from point A to point Z, you'll still end up at point Z at the end of it because you'll still be hitting those plot points. You're just not gonna be hitting them the way that you thought at first you're going to do. There's that. And if you don't have a solid grasp on your characters or your plot, but you have a solid grasp on your theme, you can start generating scene ideas and possible situations you want to put your character through, because you'll have at least an idea of what you're trying to say in the book. Maybe your theme is about, toppling a fascist government and how the power in the empire actually belongs to the citizens and not the rulers in the empire. That's a situation, that's a theme. You can figure out what your characters need to learn and what you could put them through based on your theme and where you think they need to go. Like, you don't know who they are, but at the end of the book they need to topple the government and there need to be unity with the citizens and there's gonna be a rebellion and these things. You don't know where those are gonna be in the plot points, but you at least have an idea. You have that central idea, the heart of the story that you can mine for plot ideas, scene ideas, and what your characters can go through until you get to the end of it. So yes, at least have a solid grasp on at least one of the major elements of your book. Moving on, number 8. Don't edit while you're drafting. The only job of your first draft as a new writer writing their very first book is to exist. That's it. It just needs to exist. You just need to write from the start to the end. You just need to have a finished draft. It just needs to exist. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have only one adverb per chapter, per scene. It could be 100,000 words of overwritten garbage and it's okay. Because in finishing a draft, can you only know who you are as a writer? Plotter? Pantser? Lancer? A kilter? How much do you actually need to know about your story before you can sit down and write each writing day? Do you write linearly? Or can you jump around and write chapter 10 before you can even write chapter 5? Do you need white noise? Brown noise? Ambient noise? Can you write while listening to music with lyrics? Do you need complete silence when you write? Or do you need jazz music? Or maybe you can write while jamming out to the 2000s greatest hits. If you edit as you go, you'll keep going back to the beginning without actually getting to the end. Making your first few chapters all beautiful and neat and nice and all that jazz and all the beautiful prose, no adverbs whatsoever, all very, very clean. It's not gonna matter if when you get to the 25% of your book, you realize that you started the book at the wrong part of the story. All those work that you put into making those chapters all pretty is now basically irrelevant because those chapters aren't gonna be needed because, like I said, you realize you started at the wrong part of the book, wrong part of the story. You should have started it in a different way. So yeah, putting all those work before you get to the end of your first draft is good practice for maybe editing, but those are a bunch of hours of work that you might not necessarily need. Or those are a bunch of work that will not necessarily mean much by the end of your draft. So like I said, just finish the entire draft and then edit it later when you have more of an idea what your book actually needs, where it needs to start, which plot point to focus on, which plot point to develop, the structure. You'll figure that out once you get to the end of the book because the story is there, you just have to polish it. So, moving on. Number 9. Stop each writing session before you get to the exciting part of the next scene or chapter that you're going to write. Because ending your writing session before the exciting parts gives you something to look forward to on your next writing day. And like I said earlier, you need all the motivation you can get so you can continue working on your draft, and everything helps, even something like this. So you can use this as part of your motivation as well. Simple as that. That's all it is for. Give you excitement and something to look forward to. And last but not the least, number 10. I sound like a show host every time I say the number 10. 1. Anyways, number 10. Never forget that writing a book is a marathon and not a sprint. This basically meant just pace yourself. Take a break if you need to, and don't push yourself too hard, too fast. Don't aim for thousands of total word count on your each writing day on the first week that you start writing your book when you haven't done that before. Slow and steady wins the game. You'll get to the end, one word at a time. It will take longer, yes, but you also won't be burning out or burnt out at the end of your first draft. Don't go for 12-hour write-a-thons before you can actually stick to your writing schedule and habits first. The longer you continue using your writing muscle, the stronger it gets. And you can't go long if you burn out before you can even get going in the first place. Keeping your eye on the goal, which is finishing your first draft, while also listening to your body when it tells you that it's tired, it needs a break, it needs a creative reset, will keep you in the game longer than if you don't. And that's all I have for you, folks. If you made it this far, leave me a note, a paper. I'll post it out here in the screen. Emoji, that kind of emoji down there in the comments, and let's talk about what you think about everything I talked about in this video. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you want to continue following along my journey to becoming a published author someday, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to ring that bell so you can get notified every time I post a new video. Also, last week I posted the 5 mindsets that you need to know before starting your first book, and if you're interested in that, I'll link it out for you guys at the end of this video. That being said, thank you again for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye!